Woo! What's up, everybody? In this video, we're going to be covering all of the high-yield essentials when it comes to DNA and RNA. Now, I want to remind you that topic 6, nucleic acids and protein synthesis, has 4 beautiful separate videos from us. So please make sure to check out all of these videos if you truly want to nail topic 6. Now, on a different note, if you want your brain to grow butt cheeks, and yes, I mean butt cheeks like this, then I suggest you head over to our website, teachmebio.org, and get access to all of our premium resources. Now, without further ado, let's just get started with this video. Now we know that organisms are made up of cells, but what are cells made of? We know that cells are made up of many molecules, and we can categorize them into these 5 categories. Now in this video, we are specifically going to focus on this one right here, nucleic acids. Now, what in the heck are nucleic acids? There are 2 kinds of nucleic acids, DNA and RNA, and thank goodness for these abbreviations, because check it out, deoxyribonucleic acid, ribonucleic acid, oh my days. So this right here is DNA, and this right here is RNA. Now, what is the fundamental difference between these two? There are so many, but what I want you to know right now is that the difference between these two is the building blocks that they are made of. So if we take DNA, you will notice that DNA is made up of this building block, whereas RNA is made up of this building block. And initially you'll say, wow, but they're so similar. Yes, they are, but there's a slight difference, and that's what distinguishes them. So this building block we call a nucleotide. So we can say that the nucleotide comprising DNA is slightly different from the nucleotide comprising RNA. Now, when you put a bunch of these nucleotides together to make DNA or RNA, we call this structure a polynucleotide, poly meaning many nucleotides together. Now the next question is, what the heck is the purpose of DNA and RNA? Where can we find them, and what do they really do inside of our body? To answer this question, we have to take a deep dive into one of your cells, specifically focusing on the nucleus. What goes on inside the nucleus? The nucleus is the organelle where all your genetic information is stored, your body's instruction manual. You see this long, thin thread of code? This, my friend, is your DNA. Now, what exactly does your DNA code for? Your DNA codes for your body's proteins. Different parts of your DNA will code for different proteins, and each of these proteins have their own very important job into making you look the way you look, work the way you work, behave the way you behave, all your characteristics and features. So that is their relationship. All right, so let's be specific here. One part of your DNA that codes for a specific protein, we call that a gene. So let's say this gene will code for a protein that will help you clot your blood so that when you cut yourself, your body can stop the bleeding so that you don't lose all of your blood. And in order to do so, what your cell is going to do is go ahead and copy that specific gene that it needs, because it needs to build this protein here in the cytoplasm. So after it copied that specific gene, it will send it from the nucleus into the cytoplasm. And this photocopy will then travel towards a ribosome. So we're zooming into this segment here. You can see here, this ribosome, it's a protein factory, a protein synthesizing factory, and this photocopy will bind to the ribosome. The ribosome will read it and build the protein that it's asking for, build the protein that it's coding for, just like that. Now the raw materials, these amino acids, they come from this little guy. This little guy is going to bring all of these amino acids towards the ribosome so that he can build this protein according to the code. Now, that's it. Once the protein is made, once the full code has been read and the protein is synthesized, it will be released into a little bag, which will be processed and edited until the final Lamborghini product is done and ready to go. And in our little story, this protein is going to help this guy stop bleeding so that he doesn't die of blood loss. Now that's it. That's all you need to know about DNA and RNA. You'll be like, okay, where was the RNA? It was in 3 places. This right here, the photocopy of DNA, we call mRNA, messenger RNA. This right here, the ribosome, is made up of 2 structural components, proteins and rRNA, ribosomal RNA. So it's a structural component. And this guy right here, we call tRNA because it transfers, T is for transfers, amino acids to the ribosome so that he can make the protein. And you can see if you look at its structure, it's an RNA molecule that folds into a very particular T shape. So that is it, guys. That is what you need to know. With the big picture out of the way, now we can go ahead and talk about DNA exclusively. Before we can dive into the nitty-gritty details of the structure of DNA, we have to talk about the function of DNA. Now, what do we know already? We already know that DNA is a code. And DNA itself has its own language. More specifically, DNA is made up of 4 letters. While we don't call them letters in the context of DNA, we call them nitrogenous bases. And there are 4 of them: A, T, G, and C. Now, DNA has words as well. When you put these letters together, you can make words just as you can in the English language. But these words have to be 3 letters long only. And we call these words, not words, we call them codons or DNA codons. So for example, we can have AGC, that is one word or one DNA codon, GAT, that is another, and you can make many other combinations, right? Now, each of these codons code for a specific amino acid. So AGC may code for this amino acid, whereas GAT will code for another amino acid. So now, if we put it into perspective and we take a piece of our DNA, a gene, we know different genes will have a different sequence of these letters because different genes will code for different proteins. So that's super important. Different genes will vary in how long they are and the sequence of these bases that comprise them. That just makes logical sense. So when the ribosome is reading that code to build that specific protein, it is following the DNA codons because the DNA codons are asking for a specific sequence of amino acids. Now we can go ahead and talk about the DNA structure in detail. And as we do so, we're going to cover all of these key topics. Now, in reality, you know that DNA has a sort of complex double helix structure, as we saw over here. Now, in order to analyze it a little bit easier, I'm going to unwind it. So it's going to look like this for the explanation's sake. Now, what you should know is that DNA has 2 polynucleotide strands. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is this. We know, right, DNA is made up of nucleotides. So if we take a look here, here's one nucleotide, here's another, here's another, here's another, and they're linked in a chain like this. So this right here is a polynucleotide strand. But on the opposite side, so right next to it, we actually have another nucleotide strand, right? We can see here one nucleotide, another, and another, and another to form another polynucleotide strand. So DNA has 2 polynucleotide strands that are linked right here in the center. That's very important to know. Now, to take it one step further, we're going to have Big Brain here help us zoom into the DNA even more, because we need to zoom into the nucleotide itself. So here we have one generic nucleotide, and we're going to break it down. Each nucleotide has 3 key components. Number 1, this phosphate group. Number 2, this bad boy right here. This is a pentose sugar. Pent means 5, because pentose sugars have 5 carbons. Now the thing is, there are so many different kinds of pentose sugars. So in the context of DNA, so a DNA nucleotide, this specific pentose sugar is called deoxyribose. That's very important. And the last component here is called a base or a nitrogenous base. And this is the part of a nucleotide that can vary. It can either be an A, T, C, or G. This is the letters of the DNA nucleotide. Now, each of these components, the base, the sugar, and the phosphate, they are linked to each other via a bond. And we'll talk a little bit more about these bonds later in this video. Now, to confuse you even more, we're going to give you another vocab word. The combination of the phosphate and the sugar we call backbone. Now, why do we call it like that? Because this part of the nucleotide, the part separate from the base, only serves a structural role. It plays no role whatsoever with regards to the actual DNA code. That's the role of the base. Its only job is to serve as the structural reinforcement to hold on to the key component, which is the code. Now is a pretty good time to address some common confusions, and to do so, we're going to take a look at this nucleotide in even more detail, the real chemical structure. Firstly, you'll notice when you look at the base, now you know why it's called the nitrogenous base sometimes, because it has a lot of nitrogens that comprise it. Secondly, you should be familiar with the difference between phosphate and phosphorus. Phosphate is the name for this full structure, whereas phosphorus is the element you see on the periodic table. It is one part of the full phosphate molecule, so please don't confuse those two. And one more thing, do not confuse between base, which is this part of the nucleotide, and nucleoside, which refers to these two components, the base and the combination with the sugar. This is a nucleoside. This is a base. The entire thing is called a nucleotide. Remember that. This can pop up on multiple choice sometimes. Now, if you paid attention real hard, you may have noticed that, wow, T always binds to A and G always binds to C. And that is a perfect observation. This, my friend, is complementary base pairing. It is the case that adenine always binds with thymine and cytosine always binds with guanine. To help you out, you can remember that A and T are always together and G and C are a great couple. Now, if you paid even closer attention to this image here, you may have noticed something very interesting. The nucleotides in this left polynucleotide strand have a different orientation than the nucleotides in the other polynucleotide strand. What do I mean by this? Let me show you. Look, these on the left are facing up, and these on the right are facing down. They have the opposite orientation. Now, what does this mean? This means we can say that DNA is anti-parallel. These strands are running parallel to each other, but in opposite directions. Unfortunately, we're gonna have to be a little bit more nerdy about this, because we cannot just say this is the top of the nucleotide and this is the bottom of the nucleotide. No, 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 we gotta be geeky, man. So in science, what happens is we're gonna label this pentose sugar. We're going to label the carbons. You should know that on the right side here, this is carbon number 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is carbon number 5. Not this one, this is an oxygen. This is carbon number 5. And therefore, we can say by using this logic that this right here, the top of this pentose sugar, is the 5' end because the fifth carbon is at the top. And then the bottom of the nucleotide has the 3' end. Yes, that is how we're going to do it, my guys. So if we take a look at our double-stranded DNA, we can say that, look, these are facing up, so we're going to say that this is the 5' end. And but down here we have the 3' end, and for the corresponding opposing complementary strand, it's going to be the opposite because they're upside down. So up here we have the 3' end, and down here we have the 5' end. And we have one more other thing we need to add. Remember all of these bases and how adenine and guanine have a double ring? They look similar. We call those purines. And these two that have a single ring, we can call them pyrimidines. So there's two categories of bases according to this. Now, oh my days, my guy, how on the mother earth am I going to remember this? Don't worry, we gotcha. Just remember that pyrimidines, their names contain a Y. Look, thymine has a Y and cytosine has a Y, just like pyrimidines has a Y. And if you remember those two are pyrimidines, then you'll remember that the other two are purines. All right, now let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about bonding. We already know that within one nucleotide itself, there is bonding connecting the individual components together. This kind of bond that I represent here with a solid line, this is a covalent bond, which is a very strong bond. Now, when we have a few nucleotides below each other, what kind of bonding links these nucleotides together in a chain to form a polynucleotide? Where is it? The bond will happen between the sugar of the nucleotide above and the phosphate of the nucleotide below it. And this kind of bond, guess what, is also a covalent bond because it's a solid line that I'm showing here. Now, in science, there are many different kinds of covalent bonds. So this specific covalent bond between the sugar of the nucleotide above and the phosphate of the nucleotide below, we call that a phosphodiesterase bond. Please remember this name, it's very important. Now we know how to link nucleotides together in a chain, but we know DNA has two polynucleotide chains, and we know the opposite side will be upside down, anti-parallel. Remember that. So the concept will be the same. If we have a chain of nucleotides like this, the bond will be covalent. And again, it will happen between the phosphate of one nucleotide and the sugar of the one below. Now, in terms of strength, I mentioned already that a covalent bond is super, super strong. And the reason why I'm emphasizing that is because we have to talk about one more kind of bond. It's called a hydrogen bond. Now we have two polynucleotide strands, but guess what? They're not even linked together yet here in the middle. There is a special kind of bond called a hydrogen bond that will link these guys together right here, the C to the G and the A to the T, by complementary base pairing. And this, my friends, is a is a hydrogen bond. It is a much weaker bond than the covalent bond we learned about, which is why I represent it with a stippled line. And also, you can use this big brain tip to remember it. All right, now let's go ahead and talk about the next one, which is RNA. Well, we know already, right? RNA has one polynucleotide strand, unlike DNA. So we can't really say that RNA is a double helix, a twisted ladder, because it only has one strand. So it has a helix shape, but it's not a double helix. Now, when we zoom into this RNA in detail, we are going to zoom in even more into one of the nucleotides to break down its structure. It's going to be really similar to DNA, but there are some distinct differences. So we know one of the components is a phosphate. That's the same as DNA. The next component is a pentose sugar. But remember how I told you there are different kinds of pentose sugars? This one is not the same as the one in a DNA nucleotide. No, it's not a deoxyribose. This is a ribose. That's a big difference. And the last part here is the base, the nitrogenous base. And remember, this is the part of the nucleotide that is variable. It can be either C, U, G, or A. Huh? Where's the T at? Remember, for DNA, it was ATCOG. Now there's a U, but no T. That's a big difference. The four nucleotides involved in an RNA nucleotide are different than for DNA. That's crazy, right? Now remember, the nucleotide itself is held together by some bonds. And lastly, again, we call this component of the nucleotide the backbone. It has no role when it comes to the actual code of the RNA. So here we have our RNA nucleotide. We have a chain of them. How do we link them together? With a covalent bond between the sugar of the nucleotide above and the phosphate of the nucleotide below. This kind of bond, very, very strong. It's called a covalent bond. The name's bond. Covalent bond. And remember, in this case, there's only one strand, so it's facing up. And this specific covalent bond linking two nucleotides together is called a phosphodiesterase bond. Now guys, that is it for this video. I really hope it was useful. I hope we got something into your big brain, and we will see you guys in the next one.